welcome to another episode of Around the Table GTA. This is actually a guest episode, a surprise guest episode.
What's up? What's up?
So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, this is Liam here. Yeah, thanks for having me, bro.
Thanks for doing this short notice. I wasn't even really expecting you to show up so quickly, right? Because I'm like,
good.
I gotta go clean my room, take a shower, do all of this, and then you're like, yeah, I'll be
I'm just
here.
like 2 minutes away.
Yeah, I was like, fuck. But we're here, and you know, the funny thing is, I always talk about the internet and internet friends and stuff like that, but this is actually
an internet friend.
One of my oldest internet friends, and not to age us too crazy, but
MSN.
yes, back on the MSN days, when you were trying to meet random people, you just looked at your interests. I know, I was looking through anime and different things, and this is when you're 12, 11 in the old internet, so you didn't see these people. You never knew if the person might be a child predator or whatever, but you just trusted the
internet. You trusted it.
And then after bam, you were friends. So I was talking to him, and then things changed to social media. Then we talked a little bit on social media.
It turned into Facebook.
Then, basically Facebook. Before Facebook, there was Vibe and T.Wire and all of that stuff. And you guys
Vibe and T.Wire,
yes.
man, bringing me back.
I loved Vibe because the thing with Vibe is, unlike T.Wire, I was heavy in the forums, and people just talked about things that were bigger than themselves, but it was still an interesting experience, and I've met a lot of online people there. But after that, there was Facebook, and then
even before that, if you think about it, around the MySpace days, there was a lot of people, young people were even doing coding without knowing it, because there was a lot of things with making your own websites type of thing.
Yeah.
As it was a social media website type of thing back in the day.
Exactly, and you had to figure it out, and you wanted your page to stand out,
to look a certain way,
exactly.
have music playing, and all that.
Exactly. So, unlike today, where everything's kind of copy and paste, which is very efficient at times,
but basic at the same time.
It is, right? And that's why
it's all cookie cutter now.
Exactly. And
everyone's the same.
Yeah, I make fun of.
Will the real Slim Shady please stand up?
It's not a thing anymore, and that's why I always bash iPhone users. I'm sorry if you are an iPhone user.
No, but you see the Androids right here.
All right, this is a official iPhone hater episode, but you have the freedom to do whatever you want with Android phones, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I stuck with Androids. But anyways, yeah, so we moved from Facebook, and then there's certain stuff that we got into, right? And you guys already know what I'm gonna say, but I can't really say it on Facebook because not Facebook, YouTube, whatever platform this is, or this will end up being in, there's a censorship when you use certain terms, and this is going
certain
to be
keywords get flagged.
Exactly, right? So this is trying to get around that.
Maybe there'll be some sound effects popped into words so that they can't hear the actual word.
Yeah, I might silence it, maybe make some beeps, honks, toots, right? And that could be a thing for the podcast, 100%. Right? Because it would work. But since we had certain interests that were similar, I think that's how we reconnected at the same time, and then we just started talking on WhatsApp and Signal,
Telegram, and
and all these,
the newer Snapchat and all the modernized social
apps, right? And all these, and I guess you could say they're you could even say bootleg. People would say it's bootleg now, or counterfeit or knockoff networks. But the thing about these networks is that everything starts somewhere, and you have to build on that for it to become a following. And when we were on the internet, there wasn't one huge site to do a thing. You'd go on all these little different sites to do different things, and that's how you'd connect. But I was talking to my cousin yesterday, is social media is getting very strange, and even myself, I'm trying to get off it a lot more, because I have to use Instagram for the shop as well as my podcast page. But at the same time, I'm scrolling, and then let's say I'm following 300 people, I'll see 10 accounts, and then suggested posts.
My issue is the never-ending black hole of scrolling. You end up going down this rabbit hole of you're 3 hours later and it's freaking 2 in the morning and you're like, I was supposed to be asleep how many hours ago?
Exactly, and like you keep scrolling, and there's different
That social media dopamine drip.
Exactly. If you've seen, I think the movie's called, or it's not a movie, it's a documentary. It's called The Social Experiment.
No,
Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. So if you guys want to open your eyes, you should check that out. Even though it's like on, I think it's on Netflix. But, you know, I'm an old internet person, so anything that I could find, you know, I'm going to watch it, whether I have to pay for it or not. But anyways, so when we met, you were talking about being a roadie. Can you explain to the audience what that is?
Oh, you gotta be a certain type of blood to be a roadie.
Okay. But, like, give us an example of what a roadie is, or the definition, because it's pretty
someone who's
foreign.
just on the move. Someone someone who's just on the move who likes to be on road, who likes to, you know, whether it's you know, driving for work or driving for fun, or, you know, just driving, as long as you're not driving no one crazy. But like,
Okay.
nowadays, what's crazy?
The gas prices. The gas prices.
Yeah, so who's going to be a roadie nowadays? I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience, and that's the thing about just being a roadie or just going out. Like, I think the past 2 years have kind of made it to a point where a lot of people have become a lot more paranoid, right? With my first guest episode, I was talking to my cousin, and it was like the most awkward experience because I haven't talked to him in a while, but I felt nervous, which was really strange because I've known this kid for like a majority of his life, but there was that awkwardness, and even going out, I feel a little bit more anxious, and I'm not a person that really gets anxious. So how are your thoughts on that? What do you think is going on?
On podcasts or on
in general?
With
like
the
going
gas
out,
or,
going
like,
out,
leaving. Since like everything being locked down and
exactly, and we're opening up.
I haven't stopped going out since day one.
Okay,
so I'm not too worried. I'm not too worried.
Okay, you're not too worried. So we were talking about, you know what we were talking about, and what are your views on, you know, the poke? I'll say the poke, I guess, because
the hokey pokey.
Yeah, the hokey pokey.
I don't know. It turns people's lives around.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about.
Trust me. I think there's two separate groups of people that have to find a median ground, and that's the extremes on both sides. I think the vaccinated and the unvaccinated on both sides need to come to a middle point in respect, because at the end of the day, truthfully, scientifically speaking, there's academic journals for research on this. With the vaccine shedding, it's passed through urine. So that means that if you look and study in our water filtration system, it can't actually be filtered out, whether it's sex-changing hormones, prescription drugs, drugs in general, or, as we come to know, the hokey pokey. So people think that they're, quote-unquote, these pure-blooded people.
Oh, boy.
And unless they are really off the grid, far, far away from society, living as a caveman, or maybe, you know, an Amish person or something.
Yeah.
I honestly don't see... Actually, not just that. I'm not going to... Or, like, you know, indigenous and everything, living off the land and stuff. Mm-hmm. Which, truthfully... A lot of our system's been infiltrated by all this stuff anyways, the waterways, all that stuff. So going back, the shedding can't be filtered out through the filtration systems, even if people always say, oh, I got a water purifier, but it doesn't get things out that the people are still getting stuff on a small scale, microdose scale, mm-hmm. that this hokey pokey, as you want to call it, it basically regrows itself. It regenerates within the body of those who actually took it. But there's also blood work done of people who haven't, but have been with people who have, mm-hmm. and their blood work shows that it's the exact same.
Oh, wow.
So understanding that with the shedding, that when it's going through being urinated out through the water system, because it is passed through any bodily fluid, it is being pumped throughout the system as a whole. So if you have, whether it's 70 to 90% of the population who has it, the other group of people that are still living in this system is actually still being infected, whether they think it or not.
Hmm. Okay, so this whole war on the people who took the shot and the people who haven't took a shot, it makes zero sense.
It's the right and the left. It's the up and the down. It's the black and the white. It's the this and that. Trying to feel like someone has more power than another group, or someone's ideologies is inherently a better ideology than another group's ideology, and that's not right, because each person's reality is subjective to their own reality. So each person's reality is as true to themselves as another person's reality is to themselves. So to impose your reality on another person is forcefully trying to make them change their reality, change who they are, change their perspective, when they've had different life experiences that have led them to make their decision, whether it was to take it or to not take it.
Okay, wow, that was a mouthful.
Yeah, I told you, I got lots to speak, bro.
Of course,
I got those speaks, lots of them. They come out.
That's why you're here. That's why you're here. So, I guess since you had all of that to say, how have you dealt with life just being yourself? Because I think that's something that's a big challenge, not necessarily for our generation, but Gen Z and
the
everything.
Younger generation.
Oh yeah, because you'll see TikTok.
So my very, they're basically it's my family basically. There's younger kids around and stuff. Mm-hmm. I've gotten to see the implications of social media, and it's interesting because they have become very introspectively aware to a point that is way beyond most of even our generation.
Oh yeah?
Yes. Maybe not all of them, because don't get me wrong, it's hit and miss with society as a whole, because it's all a matter of upbringing, nature, nurture, etc. But from the circle that I've seen of the younger generation, there is some that are already aware to the stuff that's going on. And the interesting thing is, despite the introspectiveness and being aware, you can see the ripple effects of the dark side of social media. You see how it's shaped them, back to what we were saying earlier when I was saying about the cookie cutter thing. You see that it is shaping them in a way that is... Well, this is another thing, how there's two different TikToks.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I've heard about that.
And I won't go into that because we don't want anything to be blacklisted on...
Oh, yeah.
Right?
We're trying to be safe, but you guys know where we're heading with this.
So now there's one that teaches you things to make a society stronger, but then there's one that's degrading the society. Now, the algorithms, if you are utilizing the algorithms to your best benefit, yeah, you might get some thirst traps and, some messed up stuff that still shows up because they want that to still show up so that the algorithm can make it start popping up more if you interact with it by accident or whatever. If you've watched it a certain amount of times, the algorithm will show that and more of it will come up. So I think when it comes to the younger generations, I think what's happened is that they're very much a byproduct of social media, to the point, and I'll use one example that I've seen the most, and I'm sure you can admit this too, on TikTok. Every young person has those LED lights, and they're in their rooms, and a lot of them have the clouds, the fake clouds.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
The amount of fads that used to be a thing for us has changed, because it wasn't that the fads were like on a global scale. Basically, everyone's becoming westernized people, sorry, not everyone, because each country, I don't want to get into each country.
Of course, we don't want to box people.
Let's talk about what we know. The Western civilization, we've been... I'm losing where I was going with
that. It's okay, but you know what? I'm going to add on to your thing with the lights thing.
Yeah.
That trend, drives me nuts. It drives me nuts because even, if you go on the block, we could walk down the block right now, or if it gets dark and we walk down the block, if you look up, you'll see the lights. You'll see the same lights, right? And back to you with the younger generation, you just ran into my sister. My sister pretty much does what she wants, right?
Yeah.
And I respect it to an extent, but at the same time, with how I've been brought up and everything, it's just like you have to care about people who are around you, but at the same time, you have to take care of yourself.
Yes.
Right? And I think helping raise my sister, I instilled that, but at the same time, sometimes
it's still different.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure, because I see that myself. But going back with the whole fads thing, I think it was different for us because social media wasn't what it is now. We didn't have social media when we were younger, so fads for us was more localized.
Oh yeah,
it was YTV was whatever kids show, whatever the most popular, whether it's Pokemon, whatever it may be. There were certain things, Tech Decks, all these certain things, Crazy Bones, Pogs. I won't get into too much into the nostalgia.
Yeah,
but
we don't want this to be a flashback episode.
But start aging us.
The thing is, just talking about that, I remember how even like rumors went around, and you'd hear like, because he said Pokemon, I remember there was this Pokemon rumor like, oh, if you played this version of Pokemon and you did A, B, and C, this would happen. And it's just like, it's so strange that even though we didn't have cell phones and all of that, if you talk to people later in life, so like let's say you reach 20 and you say, oh, remember this, somehow all the kids knew the same thing or they heard the same rumors, and it's not even...
It was passed around through word of mouth, but it was different.
And
it was
word of mouth,
the
reach.
Yeah,
the reach was disgusting.
It still reached.
Right? It's like,
But now, sorry, going into that, though, is the difference between that, though, even though the reach was still widespread in a sense, because of the world-scale social media effect, the whole box cutter mentality, the cookie cutter, sorry, not box cutter, the cookie cutter mentality has played a huge shaping of the younger generation, to the point where I would almost say a good portion of their thoughts are not their own. Oh, yeah. Their thoughts are based off of the social norm, the social cues that have been implemented into the mainstream social medias and the media in general, basically.
Yeah, just to zoom up on his point, just go if you're on Instagram, if you're on Twitter, or if you follow anything, and I'm going to say it's toxic, I don't care, like 6Buzz, for example, go in the 6Buzz comment section. When you look in some of these comment sections, even on YouTube, people will make the exact same jokes, people will make the same references, people will make the same jokes. It's not original, right?
Everyone looks the same, everyone talks the same. Look at the best example now is Toronto man slang. If you go to a country now, no matter what country it is, unless they're locked down on, completely on a different level, if you go to most countries that are connected to the global social media system, if you talk like, yo, mans, what are you dealing with, mans? Yeah. When you start doing that, they're going to know where you're from.
Yeah.
So the effects of this has became something that now you see people that are not even from Toronto, I mean, you see people picking up this slang and using it now, and they're from different parts of like America, etc.
Exactly.
And it's interesting, and the only example I can use that's similar to that would be the start of rock music, when it started going back and forth between the States and between England. So between California and all these different ways that their speech is, and then with Britain, the way their speech is, each rock group on both sides would try to sound like the other one, until it got to the point where it was very much like the Green Day, like the Good Charlotte, like all those, and the Dude and all this stuff.
Yeah.
That it branched into that. It morphed into that.
Oh yeah.
Right?
It's the connection of two.
And that was just with music.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's on a whole nother level with social media.
Yeah, and with the whole catfishing thing, and I'm throwing catfishing in there because you're saying that, people from different areas are talking or picking up slang from other areas, and it's gotten to the point where someone might pretend that, like, if they're here in the GTA, they'll be like, oh, I'm from New York, and they'll start talking like a New Yorker or someone who's in Brooklyn, right? And it's just like, if you know the person, you know the man is not from New York. Right? It's a Brampton man, right? The Brampton man's, they're talking like someone from Scarborough, like deep in Scarborough, or like someone who's talking like a Bear Hood man, but they're like really suburbs.
Well, not even just on the catfishing, but I have a homie who he has an American accent.
Mm-hmm.
He's not from America.
Mm-hmm.
He's African, but raised here.
Okay.
But he has an American accent to the point where everybody who talks to him assumes that he's from America.
Yeah, and it's from what you consume.
It's from what you consume.
Yeah.
Movies, social media, music, all of it plays a huge factor, right? And talking about consumption, that goes into everything from what we were talking about with the water. When you're consuming stuff that is... This is one of my favorite sayings, junk in, junk out.
Yep.
That goes for food.
Mm-hmm.
That goes for what you put in your body, whether it's through your eyes, through your mouth, through your ears, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to be living a certain life and you're expecting, let's say, quote unquote, positive results, but your life is not in alignment with your ideologies, you're a waste man, eh?
I know what you're trying to say, and that's the thing that I talk about in the podcast a lot. Where I talk a lot about like dualism, or just kind of like looking at things in a different perspective. Because a lot of people will approach something and they'll be like, "This is how it is because I feel this way, or I was told this way, and this and this and that." You can learn a lot from what other people have done, but at the same time, we're in such a transformative age where, like, if you do something, and it's rare now, where if you do something different and you capitalize on it, because we're in a capitalist society, you could be rich suddenly, right?
So capitalism, this is another thing. So it's interesting because we live in a capitalist socialist society, but it's changing, it's morphing. We're going through a wave where it's looking like it's turning into a communist society. Now, the thing with that, even in communism, you have oligarchs. The people who know how to ride the wave as the wave comes are the ones who reach the top.
That's right.
And it's through the worst financial crisis that you can find the people who become the richest. You just have to know how to do it. Now, going into everything that we're talking about, the people who genuinely are for the people and who want the world to be a better place and not live out of hate, but genuinely out of love, who might disagree but still loves their neighbor and still respects their neighbor, even if their neighbor is not on the remotely same page, whether it be religious, medical, health, health is the same thing, but anything in between, financial, whatever it may be, a disagreement that, could turn into a huge battle between people just out of ego. What we really can do with people who live out of love and try to work on healing the people, if this next wave that comes, which it's going to, sooner than later, the right people that ride the wave can make this world a better place, and will make this world a better place. But it's about actually being active in not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, right? And we have the opportunity right now to ride the piggyback of capitalism, and be able to utilize it with its advantages at this point in time. And even social media, like podcasts, etc., like what's going on, right?
Around the Table GTA.
So a little plug right there. But I think that a big thing is that the more people who are utilizing these outlets with the right intentions are causing these ripple effects in the matrix, the system as we know it. And it's the ripple effects, even though they seem small, like a little pebble, it still creates a wave pattern that's going out further to basically hit the other side of the pond. And we're seeing that. Examples, which I won't get into because I think there's more to it than what is perceived, but I think that it did cause a positive effect, but I think that there was players behind it. But the convoy is a perfect example.
Oh, I covered that. You guys check out my convoy episode.
It's interesting to see because it goes back to the whole thing with Coney 2012. At the beginning of Coney 2012, the video that started, he's like, I am doing a social experiment. He admits it. That social experiment was a runner-up for the global widespread to see how that it can be impacted to get people to follow the social, what's hot,
the narrative,
the social narrative, to follow the leader. And I feel that money was being put into these movements to create a tighter implementation for food, etc., coming in and stuff. But the ripple effect. When you look at the videos of the people that were in these convoys, you can see that it was people living out of love. They were sharing food with homeless. Homeless people were saying that they've never eaten so good in their entire life.
Oh, damn.
So this is showing the effects of people living out of love. Now, the ripple effect also caused, and once again, could be money as well into that, but there was a ripple effect because it became global and people became aware of it.
That's right.
And now these ripple effects are also affecting the governments because globally now the governments are getting more scrutiny to the point where Pfizer, I don't know if I can say that, but let's say Wiser, you can cut that one out, the first one out.
Yeah.
Wiser had to delist off the stocks and merge into a new company. That's for legal, to be legally, what's the word? Not liable. Why is that? And why was there so much funding being pumped in globally for that? Right? There's stuff that just, when you read the 8.5 reactions that, 8.5 pages of adverse reactions, sorry.
Possible.
Yes, possible. But you also look into the UK's data. The UK's data is actually pretty good. I believe it's showing, don't quote me on this because I might be wrong.
It's okay.
But I believe it's 1 in 35 that has the hokey pokey, or 1 out of 35 who has taken the hokey pokey has died.
Wow. That
is a high number. But if you look on the websites for the ones who created these, they show that their trials were running from up till 2022 and 2023. So when you understand how trials work, trials need placebos. And I was saying this from the get-go. I was telling people that there will be people who are getting placebos and people who aren't, and it's going to make people think that it is actually not as bad as it is. That's element number 1. Element number 2, when people got the boost, it already was getting tinkered with to fine-tune it, basically, so it wouldn't be as noticeable for the effects and stuff. So you get that. And when you look at it, if you actually were to if you were to do a lot of the math with all this stuff, there's a lot of interesting stuff, because Kill Gates, he stated that, they did not globally get 70% of the global population with the hokey pokey. Now, granted, it's in the water system, so they did kind of get a lot more than it is perceived.
Yeah, but it's not as potent, right?
But it can grow, it regenerates. So that's where, and we'll go into the anti-parasitic stuff. Now, when he's saying that not 70%, that means that there is at least over 2 billion of the world's population, at least, that has not taken it. And now, if we consider the numbers who have taken the first or second, but won't take the boosters, because personally, most people that I know aren't taking the boosters.
Yep.
Whether it be interactions with people, I've met people who work for the government and work with at-risk people, and I have been told before this started coming up with in the offshoot news and journals and different things, but how I was told to look about the boosters and HIV. And then now, there's lots of things coming out where there's people getting HIV, and it doesn't even necessarily mean it's the people who took the hokey pokey, because it is a reverse transcribed gene that is now mutating in their body, but being passed to their partners.
Wow.
And there's actually a huge spike in 13 to 24-year-olds that have HIV.
I saw the data.
Why is that?
That's weird. Yeah.
Don't you find that a little too weird?
That's a little bit strange.
And now there's a new RNA planned for HIV to be the new RNA hokey pokey.
And the strange thing about that, I'm just going to cut you off a little bit, is that if you look at data as well, they're saying that a lot of young people aren't even as sexually active anymore, right? So if people are less sexually active, how is something that is pretty much transferred by a sexual activity being at a record rate? It's at a record rate. You guys can search it. I don't have the links with me, but like I said in a previous episode, do your own research is not an insult. It's just that, see what we're talking about right now. Some people might think, or
worst case scenario, we can pull up data, because you know what?
Exactly. But what I'm saying is,
when you're a data junkie, you got the data.
You got your notes, right? So you guys can start searching, and there's a lot of different search engines that you could use. You know, you could use Google if you want to. Google blocks stuff. Every kind of search engine blocks certain things. It depends like where you are, right? If you're in certain countries, the panda country, certain sites don't work. Certain sites you don't have access to. Even recently, with what's happening with Ukraine and Russia is being cut off from so many sites because of their leader, which is, I think, it's still pretty crazy, because the people aren't doing anything. It's the government, but everybody's suffering under that. And that's a thing that we have to look into, where if you do support something, because I was talking with someone, like, if you're sending money to help with Ukraine and everything, you are contributing to the war, right? Because they're using your funds to go and fight back with Russia. Whether you think Russia is bad or not, you're still affecting those people.
So here's something else. At the end of the day, I am for the people globally. The powers that be for not much longer are grasping at straws, and they're using everything in their quote-unquote power to do the sleight of hand, and to distract by one distraction after another. Conveniently after the convoy, though this started between that side of the world. And if you look into this deeply, you actually can see, first of all, our officials have been taking pictures with Nazi signs. And the places in the Ukraine are well known for Nazis. To this day. And it's interesting, because this is the other thing, and I see a lot of memes about this, is that Ukraine is 35% vaccinated. The same people who say all unvaccinated should die are putting the Ukraine flag in their pictures. And it's beyond me. I'm not disrespecting them. I at the end of the day, each person's reality is their reality. But there's more to this, and it's interesting, because it's like you only look at what's being told to you, but why don't you look further? And it's like, trust the science even. Like, okay, well, if you're going to trust the science, why don't you read the articles that have came out with academic journals, or with the reports that have come out?
Yeah, you're just saying trust the science blindly. And just one thing to put on top of that, recently I picked up my phone this morning, because I look at some regular stuff all the time, and now they're talking about like the BA2 variant, which has been around apparently since November, right? But I think it's because so many people are kind of tired of hearing about this war stuff. They're like, they don't want to hear it, so they're throwing back into that same narrative that we've been hearing for the last 2 years. And the crazy thing about it, like you said, only 35% of Ukrainians have gotten that shot, right? But we're, as a country, we're letting unlimited Ukrainians into the country, right? So that's 65% of people who aren't up to date with their shots.
Yeah.
are coming into the country, yet people who haven't gotten the shot here can't even leave
Are
the
being
country.
treated like second-class citizens.
Exactly. So how do we know, and this is another twist on it, how do we know that these people aren't bringing that
the Nazis
BA2
well,
variant?
Not just that.
Yeah.
How my concern is about the Nazis.
Yeah. And if you hear that word, like that word's thrown around so much
very
now,
loosely. But this is actually
these are
the word is
people.
actually this being used in this context is actually in a serious context.
Yes.
And context and not in a proverbial context.
Exactly. It's people who will literally not like you because of the color of your skin, or people who believe in like race purity, which happens with all races,
Yeah.
but how like strongly they're for this is very nuts, and we don't know.
Have you seen all the videos of all the African and Indians that aren't allowed to leave Ukraine?
Yeah, and all the Arabs. Yeah,
it's still happening. There's literally people videotaping trying to get out currently.
Yep.
Currently, and they're not being allowed out.
And the crazy thing is,
but that's not talked about.
Yeah, well, it's talked about. It's leaked.
No, it's information dripped.
Yeah,
but not focused on.
Exactly.
Which a humanitarian effort should be a humanitarian effort and not just a white race effort. Because if you ask me, the days that the Ukraine was bombed, Syria, a lot of other Gaza, a lot of other places were being bombed way more than the Ukraine was. But no one bats an eye for them because they are lesser class citizens.
And the wildest thing is, like, I was talking
and I don't believe they are lesser class citizens.
Of course.
I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. This is an understanding podcast, right? I don't think I've had a Nazi on the podcast, but
you hope not.
I do. That was a good one, but I do know some people who are pretty extreme on those views, and they're like, "Oh, well, you're different," which I hate hearing.
Hey, I get it too. I get it too for everything. And honestly, that's a whole nother topic we can even go into on another day, because whether you're the token black man, the token good guy, the token whatever, it's like, oh, you don't count, or because I'm mixed, right? It's like they're talking about Indians or whatever. It's just like, oh, you're not like that.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're white enough, or oh no, you don't have to worry because you don't have full white privilege or whatever. Just foolishness.
Yeah, and it's wild too, because just for an example, yesterday I was at the dentist, but I didn't have my main dentist, so I had a dentist who was Jamaican, right? And she just started going off about African people, not knowing that I'm African, right? And I was just there listening to her and like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, by the way, I'm African, right? And it's so strange. Like, I understand, like, it's because of her generation, right? I could potentially age her about how she talks about people who are from Africa, but like, you can't group all Africans as one bucket too, right? But that's for another episode.
A whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah, because I'm gonna do an episode
called The Token.
Maybe the token, maybe the black experience, right? Because
if you do token, I'll jump on.
Okay, yeah. Let me know if you want to do another episode. It'll be great, because that's a thing that a lot of people don't understand with black people. There's so many different types of black people, so even putting everyone in a box, it doesn't make sense. But even we put ourselves in boxes at the same time, which doesn't make sense. So I like to use Ghana as an example, because that's where I'm from. There's 10 different regions in Ghana, and all the regions work differently, but we're all the same people, but we're so different. And that's only 10 regions in one country that I think we might have like 100,000 people in Ghana. So now let's go to the neighbor, Nigeria, which has like the most people in one country in Africa. They have like, I think they have over like 1 billion people or something, like millions of people, not 1 billion. That's a little bit too much, but they have so many people and they are all so different. So to try to put us in a bucket,
even just Africa, it just in general, people, and even me being actually, it's not just with Africa. It's anywhere outside of what you know. We've been conditioned to just look inside the box.
Oh yeah,
it's worse in different countries. Like America can't even describe Canada. They don't even know anything other than they think we live in igloos.
which is wild.
I think
like
only
a lot of Americans.
I only think more so in the recent years, ever since like Drake and like Justin Bieber and stuff, people have become more aware. And now since TikTok and Toronto Mans and this and that, people are becoming more aware to our society and our cultures and all that stuff. But I think that even myself, I'll use 2 examples with Russian and with African. Not realizing that different Africans are, speak different languages, have different cultures, there's a lot of different factors that, because it's a big country. The other one is Russian. Naturally, most people will think of Russians as these hard, drunk people. They're thick-skinned, hard, drunk people. I went to Cuba in 2020 before the whole thing started. And let me tell you, I got stuff prepared before I left in January because I seen what was happening in China and I knew something was up. Some of this stuff might need to be beeped out just to make sure there's no hot words, but
it's okay.
I was
probably
seeing
even uncensored.
What?
I'm leaving it raw. We're doing it live.
But like I was seeing videos coming out where people were dropping. I'm like, whatever's happening out there, I'm like, if this is going to happen globally, I want to be prepared. So I was getting masks and stuff before it was even a thing. Yep. Before it became the big star on your shirt for participation type of thing.
Oh my days.
It's like I seen this stuff and it was just like, okay, something's up. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna be ready. And like that was just a tangent off topic. But going to Cuba, I met some amazing Russians, and they were not what I perceived them to be. One of my friends his nose was bleeding, and like this one girl just came in and like we were at the beach and she like grabbed her purse and like was trying to rummage to find something to help stop his nosebleed and stuff. And like we became friends with them and we started talking to them, and it was like everything that we've been taught is a lie. Everything from school, everything. Our history is a lie. Like, don't get me started with Black history. Why is it they teach Black history is all about slavery?
Yeah, they
there was kingdoms way before that. Why is it only about slavery?
That's
like the indoctrination.
That was like the biggest eye opener for me because like I was born here, right? But I was raised a very traditional African, right? Yeah. So when they started talking about that stuff at school, I was like, huh? Right? And I went to talk to my parents. My parents were like, what are you talking about? Like, none of your ancestors are slaves anyways. It's just like, huh? And I think that was a good moment of where I started to look into things and do my own research.
That's the key, because I tell everybody to really come to an understanding of, I don't want to say everything because that's too much of a blanket statement, and I don't want to blanket it and make it the wrong context, but you really need to remove every biased and every instilled belief that we've been force-fed and indoctrinated since we were kids.
Yeah.
We have to start, you keep a structure because you are who you are and your belief systems have came about based off of whatever circumstances that you've had to go through in your life.
Yeah, and some stuff are like hard stuck culturally as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And that's what you have to understand, because like I get the whole tokenism and like really nice thing, but the thing is that's how my people are culturally. Like this is how we are until we get mad. Right? So we're very understanding, we're curious, we like to learn and give back information, and that's a big reason why I do this podcast. But even back to the Russia point, I found out yesterday that there's actually 193 different like types of people in Russia. 193. Yeah. But we have this drunken Slav fighting bear stereotype of Russia.
Driving their cars drunk all the time.
Yeah, in the squad.
Which, I've seen some pretty good videos in my day. But, like, besides that,
there's a bit of truth to it, but it's not the whole truth.
It's not the whole truth. It's not the whole truth. Because if you think about us in Canada, how many people drink and drive? I know for a fact, anybody listening to this, including ourselves, can say they've known at least one person in their life that they know personally that drank and drive.
Or it continues to this.
Yeah, but besides continuing, I'm just giving them the like a little bit, so it's to make it a little bit fair. At least everybody knows at least one person who's drank and drive.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like we get this idea that they're all drunks and they're all, and that's not necessarily even remotely the case. People living their lives just as we're living our lives, but we're told to look at them from a different lens.
Yeah.
And that's the issue with keeping control over a people. Because instead of seeing people as people, you're seeing people as not... Instead of seeing people as one of you, you're seeing people as other. And this goes into countries, this goes into the hokey pokey, and this goes into all forms of belief, religious beliefs and everything. Because it's like, how can any person say indefinitely that you're wrong and I'm right, or I'm wrong and you're right? Like, you can't say that unless there's specific data, scientific evidence. But nowadays, there's books called How to Lie with Data, one of Kilgate's favorite books.
Don't even get me started with
that. So even with that, it's like, yeah, the whole saying, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Well, guess what? Nowadays, you have to be careful with that too. However, we have access currently, before the grid goes down, we have access, and I'm just putting that as a prophetic note for people out there. You have access to get information. Get the information while you can. And save the information. Keep it.
I've done it. I've mentioned it in another episode. Even when I was doing, I did an Instagram rant on Ukraine, Russia, and there's stuff that you could search it today. It will be here today, but it won't be here tomorrow. Like, certain information is becoming extinct.
DuckDuckGo is now shadow banning information on the Ukraine-Russia stuff. Yep. Okay. And that's DuckDuckGo. That was supposed to be all about privacy and, being
We'll talk
free.
About DuckDuckGo after. Because that was
struck a nerve,
that was set up as trust me, man. I've heard about DuckDuckGo forever ago, and it's just like, oh, well, it was created by these people, and it's just like, oh, so it's, and then like, okay, so it's not really as good of an alternative as you can, right?
So here's something, and I hope this can reach a widespread audience. Raspberry Pi, we've talked about. The only way for us as a people who are living for the right reasons, or at least trying their best to live for the right reasons, and to live out of love, the only way as a people, which it will happen sooner than people even expect, is to have decentralized systems. That includes our internet, where we can build our own internet, search up Raspberry Pi, where we don't have to rely on their centralized financial system. And I'm not getting into crypto, because at the end of the day, crypto came for a reason by the group that knew what they were doing to create a one world currency. Right. However, it's still able to be utilized in the wave, as we were talking about earlier with capitalism. You can use it to gain massive amounts of generational wealth that will have a ripple effect. Yeah. Now, the other side is that we as a people, globally, not just here, not just, next door, globally. And when I say next door, I mean like America, but globally, we need to start living a decentral life that is a mixture of both the olden days, where our grandparents, great-grandparents, and I guess for the younger generations, if they choose to listen to this, their great-great-grandparents, lived a way of simplicity. Now, we're seeing gas prices go up. This is on purpose, because Russia has not imported any gas here since 2019. So to blame Russia for our gas price going up is actually 100% a lie. Propaganda. The lie detector determined that was a lie. And that's just a part of it. Because when you're looking at the World Economic Forum, but when you're looking at their reports, they're talking about this stuff going on, the whole, let's call it Slovid.
Like that.
They're talking about this to continue till 2025. Yeah. How is it that how is it that all this stuff was predicted before this happened, and they did the trial runs and all this stuff was done beforehand, and you can search this up. This is easily accessed if people decide to look for it. How is it that all this was happening and then it happened? And then, not to mention, and I am not saying I am for any political party, I am not for any
group or
anything like that. Anything. I'm not for anything, but for the people to be able to live free in a healthy manner, not in a destructive manner, and that means working with the earth, working off of the land, but going back to what I was saying, using the modern stuff. So working off the land was talking about like our grandparents, our great grandparents, etc., and using technology now. Mm-hmm. We have access to things that we didn't have at their age or at our age then. So when you take these things into consideration, you could really do a lot of beneficial things for society. We are not overpopulated. You could fit all of the global population in Alaska or in Texas with enough room to have everybody living in a house with enough room that it would not be overcrowded. But we're crowded all in floodplains. Yep. Why are we crowded in floodplains? That's a whole other story that we will talk about on another day.
Maybe part 2, because, we're reaching an hour, and I know you're a pretty busy guy, so we're going to kind of wrap it up. Just to go back on his point, with the whole prediction and already knowing, if you followed how many shot stuff that Justin Trudeau bought. He bought more than enough.
For
the population, like
multiple times over.
Exactly, and it's like, why is that? Why is there telling people we need a third shot? We need it now. We need the 4th shot. We need it now.
And not just that, even with the Ukraine. Why is it we got the likes of let's call it I'm gonna say his
don't say his name. Say his name
right,
because he's annoying.
All right.
He's so annoying.
Wait. George Soros.
Oh, okay.
You didn't. He's annoying too.
I didn't think he was, but
he's annoying too.
I thought you were going to say Zelensky. I call him Helensky.
Okay, because don't get me started with the video of him dancing and
oh boy,
you've seen that video? That
yeah,
was black. But anyways,
the meth videos.
No, but wait. Let me talk. So why is it that George Soros, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Abramovich, who is the Satanist for the human, doing all those human, quote unquote, mock sacrifices where they
the lady,
yes,
yeah.
Why are they all against Russia going into the Ukraine? I personally don't trust anything that they are on. Yeah. If they are on left, I am on right. If they are on right, I am on left.
Yep.
100%, no questions asked.
Because they're doing some wonky stuff.
I still don't trust the powers that be for not much longer globally, whether it's, the ones in Russia, Ukraine, fucking America, Canada, wherever. I don't really care. Mm-hmm. I don't trust them. They care about money and or they are blackmailed. So they are stuck in very messed up positions where they get too far in and the money is what pulls them in, and then they get too deep.
And they have to.
They get blackmailed for the stuff because, when you're rich, you do messed up things because you have money to do the messed up things because you're bored with your money. So then they get blackmailed. So they get put in very difficult situations. And I genuinely believe that our premier was a part of that because his eyes say a lot. And him talking from before to when... there's a lot of stuff that his speech and his eyes say that I think he was in too deep. And
he saw some stuff.
And he saw some stuff that he knew that he couldn't say anything or do anything because he was screwed if he did.
Oh, yeah.
He has a family.
What happened with his brother, too.
Well, right? That, and he has a family. And you know what? I think I respect his daughter for speaking out throughout all of it. Mm-hmm. Who knows what could have happened? Yep. So I respect that she spoke her heart and her mind about it. Whether people agree or disagree with her. Yep. The fact that she was still willing to do that despite the fact that people will judge and attack her.
Exactly.
People and truthfully could actually attack her physically.
Oh, yeah.
Based off of her beliefs.
Because people come to their house
because of the extremists.
Yeah.
Right? And so I do respect the fact that, she spoke out for her opinion. Now, going back to the whole thing with the Ukraine... Why is it that, and you can search this up, there was a UN meeting, I want to say, it was recently within the past week, within maybe at least, hopefully it was, past week, so, this was 17th right now?
Yep.
So in the past week. So there was the UN meeting with Russia and I believe China and all this stuff, and they were openly questioning the biolabs that were in there. And it was funny because, you know, the mainstream spin on it at first was there's no biolabs.
Yeah.
But then it started leaking. It started breaking. All their narratives keep breaking. They can't hold a narrative anymore.
Yeah,
No narrative can be held anymore because we have so much information. Whether or not they put a blackout and they blame Russia or they blame whoever, whether it's the government, our own people getting done by our own government, or whether it's Russia doing it to us. I'm not saying it's either or because I don't know.
Yep.
But something's inevitably going to happen, and there's going to be blame. Who's to blame? We don't know because we're not a part of it.
Yep.
But all of this stuff is being systematically done, and we have access to information, and it should be used right now while it can be used.
I agree 100%. So just to kind of wrap it up, because we are reaching the hour mark once again. I know you're a busy guy, but you took the time to come through, which is amazing. I really do appreciate and respect that. Back into Ukraine just for a second, because
I still got a little bit.
It's
all cool.
It's so strange for me. How can you imagine you being a person who's asking for help, and all these people are like, okay, you know, we'll give you this, we'll give you this, and then you're constantly telling everybody that they're not doing enough. I think that's the craziest thing when I actually watch all of this. Is I can't understand, and it's something where it seems so childish, because, like, you know, people are like, oh yeah, Gen Z, they're so entitled, blah blah blah. This guy is a typical Gen Zer. It's just like, Canada's not doing enough, America's not doing enough, Germany's not doing enough, you should be doing all of this. There's people volunteering, like there's like a Reddit thing where people are sign up on Reddit, going over there to help fight and actually risk their lives. And this guy's crying about people not doing enough.
I've seen Ukraine soldiers planting bombs in playgrounds in the Ukraine. I've watched the video. I'm pretty sure I have the video. I tried to get as much saved as possible for physical evidence.
Oh yeah.
Just for my own personal. I'm a data junkie.
Yep.
So I have so much information about everything just out of interest that I probably will never look through all the stuff that I have.
Exactly.
But it fascinates me to research things.
And the thing is, too, is just like, a lot of people will approach you and be like, oh, you're crazy, you're saying all of this stuff.
You're a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, my days. Yeah, and, you know, that's something that
which was basically proven wrong when Trump released the files of JFK, because that's where the coin term came from.
Yep.
I believe the CIA coined that term so that it would denounce anybody who's seen more than one shooter.
Yep.
And now that word has rippled into society to the point where anybody who questions the narrative has now automatically became a conspiracy theorist, even if them questioning it is based off of actual research and even doctors and scientists. And I know we're jumping from the Ukraine now back to this stuff, but like, it's like, look with your eyes, but not just with but don't base your things off of your emotions. See, this is the issue. Society lives out of their emotions and not out of their intellect. And if you believe it or not, your spirit, for those who believe in their spirits, that it is scientifically proven that it weighs, I believe, 22 grams or something like that. Mm-hmm. It was done in 1980, I believe. Mm-hmm. And also, I believe Russian scientists, funny enough, also found that out as well. Mm-hmm. I believe it was done in America, but I can't remember. I believe two separate, they weighed it and they came to find the soul weighs something.
Oh, damn.
I believe it's 22 grams. So, funny enough, whether or not you believe in your soul or you do, whatever, cool. But for those that do, out of your soul. But for those that don't, out of your intellect. But you should have both. Your emotions can be used as tools, but they can also be your own demise.
That's right.
And society has became very emotionally unstable, where everything is offensive, everything hurts people. Like, it's interesting because it's like, we grew up in a weird era where things were still acceptable in a sense from the past. Yep. Whether it be racism or, you know, weird little things were still
terminology.
Still rippled into our lives. Yeah. We were still products of both sides of
New and old.
Yeah. And now, I don't believe in being racist. I don't believe in being prejudiced. I believe you should love everybody genuinely on a level that is so pure that you see people with their faults, but you see them for them. Mm-hmm. And here's a very good example, and it's on Reddit. So one of my closest friends is very much into BoJackman.
Okay.
Got me a little bit into it because I'm seeing some of these episodes and I'm like, yo, this is actually some deep stuff that's being talked about.
Yep. I watched the first season.
And so the Reddit about BoJackman's trauma, why he's an asshole, and how it was a generational curse, basically, that was generational trauma that was passed on. Mm-hmm. And they look at, I believe it's
spoilers, by the way.
Sorry. Yes.
It's okay.
I believe it was his grandpa who is looked at as the evil guy. Mm-hmm. But no one takes into consideration the trauma that he went through also.
Yeah.
And we need to come to a point to respect and love people despite their beliefs, and to come to an understanding of trauma. We have all gone through some trauma in a different shape and form, whether it's physical, whether it's racism, rape, whatever it may be. We all go through some form of trauma at some point in this society that we're living in.
Yeah, mental, physical,
all of
or
it.
Spiritual.
Emotional, all of it, right? And so the only way a society can really flourish and move forward is that we start unpacking our trauma individually and work from the in out. Because if we're just working on trying to fix others, the problems that are happening out in another country, the problems that are happening in another city, the problems that are happening in another person's life, and not trying to actively work on the problems within ourselves, it's on a level where it's like, first you have to become aware of trauma, and you have to sit with it, and it's very uncomfortable, and most people don't want to. This is why addictions is such a prevalent thing. This is why abuse is such a prevalent thing. This is why people work so hard and don't want to do anything other than work.
And a big thing, like, because he was talking about all of that, just look at the first 3 months of 2020, like, after everything that started to happen. All of these people had to, not everybody, but, the people who had to stay home or work from home or they lost their jobs, people were actually stuck with their family.
Yeah, right? And that was beautiful.
They were stuck with their family, and some people...
But it was also bad.
...could deal with it. Some people could not deal with it. Like, the divorce rate went up in some places. Abuse rate went up. And everything.
Suicides.
Yeah, and it's because people tend to run away from their problems. And the thing is, when you're...
And in most cases, sorry to cut you off quickly,
okay.
But most cases, the problems stem from home.
All right, it all starts from somewhere.
Not always.
Yeah, and I told my sister that last week, and she thought I was just trying to throw some shade at her. Like, everything starts at home.
Yeah.
Everything starts at home. So if you can't fix things at home, like even Jordan Peterson talks about that, is the whole cleaning your room thing, is if you can't deal with the stuff that you're dealing with at home, and then you're going outside trying to deal with other stuff, you might deal with that stuff outside, but you still have to go home and deal with what is in your house, right? So I think that's kind of evolved where you see people talking about acceptance to an extent, but they're using that as a way to deal with their trauma, and then they're attacking other people who have these different views. And it's like, why are they pushing for this when they don't really even care about it or stuff? Or like, even to the extent of like acceptance or diversity and stuff in a sense, right? Yes, you could want more acceptance or more diversity and everything too, but what are you really dealing with where you want everybody to be a certain way or feel a certain way or do things a certain way, where if one person says, you know what, I don't really like that you send an army of people to attack that person for their view or for what they stand for because it's something that you might not like. You have to really go back and think about why you don't like that thing or how that thing is affecting you to the point where you're attacking everything else. Because you're also being part of a problem when you're silencing other people, even if you don't agree with what they stand for or what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that when push comes to shove, I think we as a species of conscious meat suits walking around on this floating rock, I think that we should really start looking inward and not outward at others and why they are the way they are. Although, that is interesting. Psychology and all this stuff, psychoanalyzing is an amazing thing to do. It's interesting. Mm-hmm. But I think people as a whole need to start looking inward. And why does somebody being vaccinated or why does somebody being unvaccinated set you off? Why does somebody wearing a mask or why does someone not wearing a mask set you off? Because on both sides of it, it doesn't matter whether your belief is that it does its job or it doesn't do its job. It matters that you should respect a living soul, a living being, whether you believe in soul or not, as a living being. They might not have the same belief as you, but at the end of the day, you can take medical, like prescription drugs. You could take herbal drugs. In some cases, maybe the medical drugs will work better for you. But in some cases, or in a lot of other cases, which I know personally, herbal things will work better for others. Mm-hmm. It all depends on people's makeup, how their biological makeup, etc.
I could do a whole episode on genes.
Oh yeah. Well, that could be another day, another dollar. But like,
that's right.
I think people, when it boils down to it, I think people need to start looking at people as people and not as second-class citizens or not as, pure blood or, tainted blood or mud blood or whatever they call it. God. It's like, yo, at the end of the day, we're all in this
together.
As cheesy as basic as it sounds.
Yeah.
We are in this melting pot together, and either we rise as a collective to make the world a better place and not force things upon people, but work together. Because truthfully, like I said, shedding happens, so we all have it in us on some level. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't even matter. That should not even matter. What matters at the end of the day is for us to start looking at each other's differences out of love and respect, out of each other's, even the bad stuff. You need to start looking out of love and respect that there is something that has taken place that has a cause and effect. Whether it's good or bad, there's a cause and effect to everything. As above, so below. There is always something that is interconnected to each other. Right? And I think we are all interconnected in ourselves. And I believe that the more of us that are standing for what is right and not what our emotions dictate and not what society dictates, but what in our heart we know to be true, and love is in our heart. You can have a killer who can still love people.
Yeah.
You can have a rapist who still loves people.
Yeah.
You can have a thief who still loves people.
Yeah, because they're doing it for someone.
The love is something that is inherent in basically, I would like to say, almost everybody. I would say almost.
Unless you're like a sociopath. But
yeah,
even then, there's a thing too, because like I'm gonna cut you off, but it's just like when you look at people who become like very religious.
Yeah.
Right. There's some people who did like the craziest, darkest things, and then they become like very good people.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's people who are like really, really good people,
and
they just became corrupt, and they're like they don't care about anything.
Hey, it's the money and power can be a huge implication.
There's a huge duality in human nature and people, but to bring out the best in the people around you, it's something that I also firmly believe you have to be different. Like, for example, like me at work, I'm just like the different boss, and everyone comes to me. And do I do it so that people like me? No, I do it because I think it's the best way
to be genuine.
And exactly, and this is like, I could be nice to everybody, and we could all do this work, or I could be mean to everybody, and we could all do this work. At the end of the day, we're all gonna have to do this work. So, am I gonna just be myself? or am I gonna just be some random asshole boss?
Greed is a huge problem with that. And there is studies and there is actual businesses that people can look into, where when a company divides its profits equally or more fairly to all the quote unquote people underneath. Mm-hmm. So if the corporation, the boss at the top, takes a huge pay cut and shares it within everybody else underneath, they are actually proven to work more efficient and work way better than being told and treated like crap and, not getting proper, fair, adequate pay, not getting proper time off. Truthfully, at this point in the day and age, we are slaves that get paid minimum wage.
Facts.
We got money and holidays.
That's it.
And it's not even enough money to get by, because let me tell you, with the price of gas, with the price of food, housing. We are being purposely starved out for a reason. And that's another podcast for another day too.
All right, so we're going to end it here, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy my guest. This is going to be part 1. So this is actually the whole episode, but part 2, part 3, part 4 depends on if my guest decides to show up. Whether we're still alive, still here, we don't know what's going to happen, especially with the war situation. I don't know if you're hearing this from the future and you got this hard drive from somewhere and it's like, oh, who are these two weirdos?
Random people talking about these random countries that we've never heard of because history's deleted itself.
Exactly. Maybe you won't even understand the
language that we're speaking
about, right? And we have to be like, what's a Toronto man's?
Why does this person say yay?
Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you guys like this episode.
Bless up.
More
Peace.
episodes coming soon. And any final words before we go?
Be the change you want to see and love everybody out of your heart, and try to learn that emotions aren't necessarily the best things to dictate an opinion.
That's a strong one. Anyways, I'll catch you guys later. See ya.